I'm Darenisha Heron. We start with breaking news tonight. Another historic weekend here in America. President Joe Biden announcing he's withdrawing from the 2024 presidential race after weeks of mounting pressure from within his own party. It's a decision that apparently came just a few hours ago. Biden telling his senior team he changed his mind about staying in the race at 12:45 today, just 1 minute before his letter went out to the public. He spoke to the vice president as well. Kamala Harris releasing a statement that says in part, quote, "I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination," end quote. ABC's Perry Rusum has more.
President Biden dropping out of the race for president, releasing a statement that reads in part, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." Biden exits the race amid growing calls from lawmakers for him to step aside. Democrat turned independent Senator Joe Manchin this morning.
It's time. It's just time. To a new generation to come in.
Biden's candidacy began to unravel nearly 1 month ago at the first presidential debate with former President Trump.
This guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want.
Days later, Biden telling ABC's George Stephanopoulos only divine intervention could get him to leave the race.
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Biden remained steadfast on the campaign trail.
If you're going to drop out, what you going to do? Well, here's my answer. I am running and going to win again.
This is the first time an incumbent president has dropped out since 1968, when President Lyndon Baines Johnson stepped aside. Biden is now endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris, who was 22 years younger than Biden. The president writing, "Today I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this." Harris does not automatically become the Democratic nominee. The process to choose a ticket remains murky, and it's not clear if other Democrats will challenge Harris. Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison saying, in short order, the American people will hear from the Democratic Party on next steps in the path forward for the nomination process. Trump's campaign team is already narrowing attacks on Harris, Donald Trump Jr. calling Harris more liberal and less competent than Biden. We are waiting to see when President Biden will address the nation. He has been at his vacation home in Rehoboth Beach, recovering from COVID. Perry Russom, ABC News, Washington.
Joining me now is political science professor Mark Jones with Rice University. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us tonight. I want to start by asking you about the historical context of President Joe Biden's decision to drop out of the presidential race today. Have we ever seen something like this before, and especially under these conditions with members of his own party calling for him to step down?
I think you probably have to go back to 1968 with Lyndon Baines Johnson to find something even remotely similar, but this is a new era. This is a primary era where the president already went through the primary process, was elected, and up until recently was insistent that he was going to continue with his campaign. But the pressure from Democratic donors and Democratic elites simply became too much. And I think at the end of the day, he buckled and decided to step aside and hand the reins to Kamala Harris.
We know that President Biden has already endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take his spot in the race and run for president. What do we know about how that process might work, and what are the chances that someone will challenge Harris?
Well, so there are a couple ways the Democratic Party can do this. The easiest is to go forward with a virtual vote that they had already planned for the first week of August, that instead of essentially ratifying Biden as the nominee, that vote would ratify Harris as the nominee, and she could then go into the to the convention in Chicago later in August as the party's de facto nominee. The other option would be that they cancel that vote and they go to an open convention, which would probably be a disaster and a nightmare for the Democratic Party because you would have opposition from different groups. You had supporters from Harris, supporters of people like Gavin Newsom from California battling it out. So I think the most likely scenario is that the party tries to line up behind Kamala Harris as quickly as possible, get her anointed as the nominee, and move forward to the battle against Donald Trump in November, because that's just a little more than 100 days away.
Very close. And Mark, you recently helped survey Texas voters. That survey was conducted between June 20th and July 1st. What were the main takeaways, and how did Texans feel about Kamala Harris?
Well, our survey showed there that support for Kamala Harris is a little lower than support for Joe Biden. It's not a lot, but there's a segment of the Texas population that likes Joe Biden but doesn't like Kamala Harris. So if anything, it's probably going to be a little tougher for Kamala Harris to run against Donald Trump, at least here in Texas. I don't think anyone was thinking that Biden was going to beat Trump in Texas. It was just a matter of how badly he was going to lose, whether by 4 or 5 or 6 points like last time, or something approaching more 9 or 10 points.
Yeah, the country is definitely anticipating to see how all of this will shake out. Mark Jones with Rice University, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Both state and local politicians are weighing in on President Biden's decision. Governor Greg Abbott posting on X saying, quote, if Biden is unfit to run for presidency, he is unfit to run the presidency. A change in the Oval Office is essential immediately to ensure the safety of Americans and the security of our country, end quote. And Austin Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who was the first House Democrat to ask Biden to drop out of the race, releasing the following statement that reads in part, quote, once again, President Biden comes through for America, putting country over ego in a way that Donald Trump never could. Now we must move forward to offer a nominee who can win over disaffected voters and energize Democrats, end quote. While Doggett acknowledges that Vice President Harris is the leading candidate, he continues to call for an open process to select the Democratic nominee.